for his leadership here and managing this bill on the floor on behalf of my friend from Georgia, who rightfully raised this issue in the Rules Committee, on which he and I both serve, and which we immediately raised in front of the Rules Committee and for the entire body. There is nobody, to the best of my knowledge, in this body who supports this language that was inserted in the end of the funding bill that we passed last week. I don't know anybody. I've yet to meet one person who supports it. So rather than my colleagues on the other side of the aisle coming together in a bipartisan agreement that we are going to, as the House, hip check the Senate for having put a provision in there that we disagree with, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to try to make this a partisan issue, when in fact Senate Democrats were equally involved in making sure that this provision got inserted. And in fact, they were very specific about only wanting a provision if it was only focused on the Senate. They didn't want it to be used, for example, to help J6ers or FACE Act individuals who were abused by the Department of Justice under President Biden. They didn't want it to be a more expansive private right of action. Instead, they wanted it to be narrow, and narrow for the Senate. So rather than the House being in a bipartisan agreement, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to make it partisan. So we're going to make it partisan. Let's be very clear. The reason we were in the position that we were in last week was that we'd been shut down for 43 days. Why? Because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have literally nothing to run on. The only thing my colleagues on the other side of the aisle can run on is shutting down the government, making up nonsense about health in which they're going to enrich insurance companies in the process, and have nothing to take to the American people other than trying to create division. So here we are. And the fact of the matter is, we're going to pass this legislation within days. We're going to send it to the Senate, and we're going to make clear to the Senate that they need to correct this issue, because the American people rightly are with us. And the House of Representatives, Republican and Democrats, are rightly checking the Senate. But there's one last really important piece to this, which is the Arctic frost investigation itself, which specifically targeted United States senators in an egregious abuse of power, targeting those senators for their information and their records. That is something that is an absolute affront to separation of powers and to our constitutional order, to have the Department of Justice targeting those senators. So those senators were rightly wanting to find ways to stop Jack Smith and the abuses of the Department of Justice. We in this chamber just simply believe that if you're going to do something like that, it should apply to all Americans and not be something specific to the United States Senate. We're correcting this now. We should pass it immediately. The Senate should take it up and pass it. And a little personal message to the Senate: take this up and pass it, or you're not getting any support from this member for any of your measures that come over to this body. I yield back.
Yields back.